You open one door, and you spend years paying for 1 second. In this closed case, the door does not fail because it is weak. The door fails because it is trusted. A calm knock, a familiar word on a jacket, a routine morning, then instant regret that cannot be taken back. The consequence is not only what happens in one home. The consequence is what spreads after. The suspicion, the second guessing, the quiet panic when a doorbell rings again. This case matters because it shows how the safest habit can be used against you and how quickly normal turns into evidence. This story is a closed case with confirmed outcomes. The people are anonymized. Exact addresses are removed, and identifying details are softened. You get a facts first timeline built from court-covered reporting and public case coverage. You do not get graphic detail. You do not get blame. You get the sequence, the decision points, and the overlooked detail that makes the whole file feel avoidable. The official record confirms that this case ends in prison sentences for 2 men who used a police disguise to gain entry during a Vancouver home invasion in early 2021. One later pleads guilty to manslaughter and receives a 12-year sentence, and the other receives a 7-year sentence. It is over in court, but it is not over in the mind of anyone who lives behind a door. Now, you step into the first scene before anyone knows there is a case at all. It is still dark outside. Rain sits on the street like a thin sheet of oil. You hear distant traffic, a late bus hissing at the curb, and the soft pulse of an apartment building elevator. Inside a small home near a city park, the air is warm and dry. A kettle cools on the stove. A hallway light glows through a half-closed door. Everything feels ordinary, almost boring. Then you hear it. One clean doorbell ring, not frantic, not repeated. A single chime that turns your attention toward the entryway. In the seconds that follow, your brain does what it always does. It tries to categorize. Delivery, neighbor, maintenance, police. The last one carries a weight that feels like safety. At the threshold, the detail that changes everything is not force, it is presentation. Jackets marked police, a posture that looks official, a pace that suggests this is routine. You do not hear shouting, you do not hear panic. That calm is the hook. The door is the hinge. Once it swings inward, the rest of the timeline becomes a downhill street in the rain. Here is the counterintuitive part. The danger is not loud. The danger is polite. It is the kind of threat that asks and waits and relies on your respect for authority. It turns your own caution against you. In this file, the first mistake is not weakness. The first mistake is trust. You will also learn why the response side does not arrive in the way people imagine. When the call comes in later, it is not a clean crime in progress report. It is concern. It is silence. It is a request for a welfare check. Dispatch moves with what it has, not with what it fears. That gap between what is happening and what is being reported is where cases like this hide. Stay with the timeline, and you get 3 things. You get a clear, minute level sequence from approach to discovery. You get the decision point that turns a normal door into a trap. You get the small detail from the record that explains why the disguise works and how the case closes in court. If you want more closed case files told with clean narration and real records, subscribe and stay with the series. You are not here for shock. You are here to understand what most people miss. Now rewind. You go back to the hours before the first ring, when the street is empty and the door still feels safe. You go back to the hours before the chime. The city is still half asleep. Streetlights throw pale pools across wet pavement. The air smells like cold rain and exhaust. In a small house near a large park, a senior woman moves through a familiar routine. A kettle, a folded towel by the sink, a radio turned low enough to feel private. Outside, the first sign does not look like a threat. A car slows. It does not stop. It rolls past once, then again, like a driver looking for a house number. Headlights sweep across curtains and disappear. No one on the block reacts because nothing has happened yet. That is what makes it work. The case record later places the approach just before 6 in the morning during late January. 2 men walk up with purpose and no hurry. They wear dark jackets with police markings. Their hands are empty. Their posture reads official. They stand close to the door, close enough that if you peek through glass, you mostly see fabric and badges. Here is the counterintuitive detail. They do not try to look scary. They try to look normal. They want you to relax. They want you to fill in the rest of the story for them. If you believe they are police, you also believe there is a reason you should cooperate. Inside, the house stays quiet. The woman does not expect company this early. She is not waiting for a repair visit. She is not waiting for family. The only thing that fits the hour is police. That thought is heavy. It carries authority and safety at the same time. You hear the bell, one clean ring. You hear a brief pause, then a second sound, a knock, controlled and patient. No shouting, no urgency. The calm feels like proof. One detail does not fit if you know doors. The men do not step back. Most real officers give you space at the door. Space keeps the interaction safe for everyone. These 2 stay close. It is not a mistake. It is a tactic. It keeps you from seeing the sidewalk. It keeps you from seeing the car. It narrows your view until the jackets are all you have. Minutes later, the door opens. That movement is silent, but decisive. When the deadbolt clicks, the chain is not used, and a warm hallway light spills into the cold air. The men speak low and keep the tone controlled. Public reporting later focuses on the disguise and how it gains entry. It is not a forced door. It is a trusted door. After that, the street stays quiet. No alarms, no neighbors running, no sirens. In many closed case files, the first police contact is not a chase. It is a gap in routine that someone notices too late. Hours pass. Morning grows brighter. Rain keeps falling in thin, steady taps. And the first official call is not from inside the house. It comes from next door. A neighbor has a security camera pointed toward the street. He checks it and sees something wrong. The camera has been moved. The angle is different. It is a small change that hits like a weight because cameras do not move themselves. Around mid-morning, he calls police and asks for a welfare check. Dispatch treats it as a welfare check because that is what it is. The call is logged, units are assigned, and the timeline begins on paper. This is another counterintuitive piece. The system can only respond to what is reported. If the first report is a moved camera and silence, then the first response is a careful knock, not an emergency entry. For a moment, you can feel how thin the margin is. The door has already been opened once. Now another door is about to be approached again, this time by uniformed responders who do not yet know they are walking into a fresh crime scene. They are following procedure. They are trying to help. The arriving officers do not sprint up the walk, and they approach with the calm pace of a welfare check. They look for signs of life, a light on, movement behind curtains, a car in the driveway. Rain taps on their jackets. Water drips from the edge of a porch awning. The house looks normal from the street, which is part of the danger. They knock, they wait, they listen. There is no answer. They try again. In some cases, this is where the story ends with a tired laugh and an apology. In this one, the silence stays heavy. The next decision point is small, but irreversible. Do they force entry on a welfare check, or do they widen the net and call for more resources? That choice is shaped by what they can justify in the moment. And while that decision is forming, the truth inside the house is already beyond routine. You move with them toward the door, and the first mistake is about to be repeated, for a very different reason. You stand on the porch in the rain with a welfare check mindset, and that mindset shapes everything you do next. The street is quiet. The house looks normal. No shattered glass. No obvious damage. You can smell wet cedar from the fence line and cold air coming off the park. You knock again. You wait. You listen. Nothing answers. The neighbor stays nearby and keeps pointing at the camera that is now aimed wrong. That small change is the reason you are here. It is also the first clue that the scene has been handled by someone who wants time. You call dispatch and confirm what you have. A neighbor report. A resident who is not responding. No medical alert call, no active alarm. On paper, it still reads like silence. Here is the counterintuitive detail. Silence can be the loudest part of a case. Not because it means nothing happened, because it means someone had enough control to keep it quiet. You take a slow look at the entry. The door frame is intact. The lock hardware is intact. The porch light is off. The welcome mat sits slightly crooked as if a shoe caught it in passing. It is a small thing, but you notice it. The house does not look lived in for the last few hours. It looks paused. You try the handle. It gives. Not wide open, not swinging, but unlocked enough to move. That changes the calculation. It is no longer only about a welfare check. It is now about an unsecured home and an unknown reason. You do what procedure expects. You announce yourself at the threshold. You keep your voice controlled and clear. You step in only as far as you need to confirm safety. Inside, the air is warmer than it should be. It smells faintly like detergent and something metallic from damp shoes on tile. Your boots make a soft squeak on the floor. You call out again. No answer. You do not push deeper like it is your home. You move like it could belong to anyone, including someone who does not want you here. A hallway light is on. That should be comforting. It is not. It reads like someone left in a hurry, or like someone wanted the place to look normal from the window. The living room looks tidy at first glance, then your eyes settle on the details that do not belong. A cushion shifted, a drawer slightly open, a chair that is not pushed in. Nothing dramatic, just enough to tell you that order has been disturbed. You pause. This is one of those moments where time slows, not because you are afraid, because you are listening for the smallest sound that confirms you are not alone. You hear only rain against the roof and a refrigerator cycling in the kitchen. The house is too still. You move forward another few steps and keep scanning corners and doorways. You do not see a struggle. You see the absence of normal movement. Then you find her. You do not describe it. You do not need to. You see enough to know this is not a simple welfare check. You back out and shift into a different mode. Outside, the rain feels sharper. You speak in short sentences. You request more units. You secure the perimeter. You keep the neighbor back. You treat the home as a scene that needs to stay intact. In cases like this, the first minutes after discovery decide what you can prove later. Another pattern interrupt hits right away. There is no broken door. There is no forced entry to point at. That means whoever entered was either invited in or had a key, and both possibilities widen the suspect pool in dangerous ways. You start with what you have. The neighbor has a camera system. The angle is wrong now, but the system still holds earlier footage. The neighbor knows how it was pointed before and what it normally captures. You get the sense that someone did not want that camera to watch the front walk. You coordinate to get video pulled and preserved. The homeowner cannot tell you who visited. The door cannot explain why it was opened. Video becomes the first witness that does not forget. Reputable reporting later confirms what that video shows. Two men approach in jackets marked police. They look official enough to earn a second of compliance, and they ring once, then wait. That wait matters. It tells you they expect the door to open. They are not improvising. They are running a plan. Now the first mistake of the day becomes clear. It is not only the door opening. It is the assumption that a marked jacket equals safety. It is the reflex to comply with a uniform, even when the hour is wrong and the posture is off. The officers on scene now face a new risk. If two men felt confident enough to dress as police, they may also feel confident enough to return. They may be nearby. They may be watching the response. Every car that rolls past feels like it could be part of it. You widen the canvas. You start a neighborhood sweep for more cameras, doorbell systems, garage cameras, apartment lobby footage. You ask who heard anything. You ask who saw a vehicle idle in the dark. Most people saw nothing. That is the point of the disguise. It lets a crime move like a routine call. By the time the scene is fully locked down, the door has become evidence. Not because it is broken, because it is the place where trust was used as the entry tool. And now you step into the next phase, where the case leaves the house and spreads across the city, one camera angle at a time. You move from a quiet doorway to a citywide problem in less than an hour. The scene is secured. The neighbor footage is preserved. Then the first larger consequence arrives. A police disguise does not only bypass a lock, it damages trust across an entire neighborhood. Detectives treat the entry point as the center of gravity. There is no forced door to measure. There is no shattered glass to map. The record of entry is social, not mechanical. Unless someone stands there looking official and the door opens. That is harder to prevent and harder to explain after. The first move is simple. You widen the camera net. Doorbell cameras, apartment lobbies, parking garages, convenience stores, bus stops, any lens that might have caught two figures moving through rain before dawn. This becomes a race against overwrite cycles and human routine. People delete clips. Systems loop. Memory fades. The footage gives you a direction, but it also creates a new limitation. Dark clothing at night looks the same from 50 feet away. A police-marked jacket helps the suspects at the door, but it also hides them on camera. You can see the posture. You can see the timing. You cannot always see a face. Then another clue shifts the urgency. Public reporting in the early weeks confirms police believe the suspects misrepresented themselves as officers to gain entry just after 6 in the morning. That detail changes how you treat every lead. It is not a random knock. It is a method. Now you have a decision point. You can keep the investigation quiet to protect evidence, or you can warn the public that a police disguise is in play. A warning can save someone, but it can also tip off suspects. Either way, you have to accept that the door is now a risk point for anyone living alone. In the days after the discovery, you feel the neighborhood tighten. People keep lights on longer. They check peepholes twice. They talk through doors. The rain keeps coming, and every set of headlights sliding across a window feels like a test. the most ordinary sound, a doorbell, starts to carry weight. Here is the counterintuitive part. The disguise works because it is not perfect. It is close enough. A jacket, a badge-like shape, a confident stance. Many people do not expect full uniforms at a front door. Many people expect help to look informal. That gap is the opening. Investigators also start asking a question they do not want to answer yet. If someone is willing to pose as police at one door, they may try it again at another. In early reporting, Vancouver police leadership speaks about the disturbing nature of this tactic and notes how easily tactical style gear can be obtained. That creates a second stakes layer. This is now about community trust, not only one scene. You take a breathing beat here because the case is shifting shape. The first phase is discovery. The second phase is identification. And identification is built on small parts that add up. A vehicle that passes twice, a camera angle that is wrong, a jacket that looks official, a time window just before dawn. None of those details alone solve anything. Together, they form a pattern you can test. Then, the timeline marker lands. 2 days after the home invasion, the victim dies in hospital, and police arrest 2 men that same day, according to early reporting. The case moves from unknown suspects to named defendants in record. For investigators, the tempo changes. Arrests do not end the work. They begin a new kind of work, the kind that has to hold up later in court. You now build the file in a way that anticipates defense arguments. You separate what the camera shows from what you assume. You map who touched what. You track what was taken. You document the disguise pieces and where they may have come from. You write everything down like someone will challenge every sentence, because they will. Another micro hook appears in an unexpected place. The neighbor camera that was moved becomes more than a warning sign. It becomes an act that suggests planning and control. Someone thought about sightlines. Someone wanted time. That detail does not tell you who, but it tells you how. As the investigation deepens, the door keeps returning as a theme, not as a symbol, but as a procedural gap. If a stranger claims to be police, most people assume verification is rude. The case shows the opposite. Verification is safety. That is the lesson the file forces into daylight. By the time the case reaches court, later reporting confirms the main facts that anchor this story. The suspects used police-style markings to gain entry during a January 2021 Vancouver home invasion, and the case ends with prison sentences after guilty pleas. The public sees the outcome. The file shows the cost of the method, and there is still one detail in the record that changes how you understand the door. It is not only that it opened, it is why it opened so easily, and why the scene afterward felt so quiet. That detail is waiting in the report. The case changes when you stop looking at the door as a moment and start treating it as a plan. Detectives return to the earliest hours and ask one basic thing. Why would a person open a door to strangers at that hour? The disguise is one answer. The record reveals another. In court, the judge later notes a detail that reframes the entry. The same home had been broken into days earlier. That matters because it sets an expectation in the mind of the person inside. If you have just lived through a break-in, you are more likely to believe police might return. You are more likely to open the door to get answers. You are more likely to trust the jacket that says police. This is the twist the report gives you. The door does not open only because the disguise looks official. The door opens because the scene has already been prepared, days in advance, by fear and unanswered questions. You picture it in real time. You are alone in a quiet house. You remember the earlier intrusion. You remember the feeling of being watched. When the bell rings this time, the words police do not just signal authority, they signal relief. The door becomes a place where you want closure. That is the hook the offenders use. Investigators treat that earlier break-in as a missing chapter. It means the suspects may already know the layout. It means they may know where the camera is. It means they may know what rooms are quiet and which doors stick, and how long it takes a neighbor to notice something is wrong. The case stops being a sudden event. It becomes a return visit. A pattern interrupt lands here. You realize the moved camera is not only a cover-up after the fact. It may be part of a routine the offenders already understood. You do not need to guess what they knew. You just need to prove what they did. The video shows the approach. The scene shows the silence. The earlier break-in explains the trust. You build the file around that sequence. You pull any report from the earlier incident that can be confirmed without exposing private details. You check for calls for service in the days before. You check whether a repair person had been scheduled. You check who had legitimate reasons to come to the door. You are not trying to blame a victim for opening it. You are trying to show how the offenders shaped the conditions that made opening it feel safe. The court record also supports that the visit is not casual. The sentencing decision refers to forethought, including using a disguise to gain trust. It also notes they brought restraint items in case they were needed. That detail changes the temperature of the case. It tells you this is not a spur-of-the-moment trespass. It is a controlled entry plan that anticipates resistance. Now the investigation focus shifts. It is no longer only about identifying two men in dark jackets. It becomes about mapping their steps in the days before. Where were they seen? Which streets did they circle? Which shops did they enter? Which cameras did they pass? You go from a single morning to a wider timeline, because planning leaves traces. Another mini-hook forms in a quiet place. If they had already been inside once, they might not need to rush. That could explain the calm at the door. It could explain why there is no panic on the street. When someone believes they understand the interior, they move like they own it. That confidence shows up in small choices, like how close they stand to the frame and how long they wait after the bell. You also see the cost on the response side. When a welfare check becomes a homicide file, every earlier assumption is reread. Dispatch notes, arrival time, first observations, each line becomes a future courtroom sentence. Investigators have to prove not only what happened inside, but how the door was opened without force and why that matters. This is where the title lands again. Closed case warning, one door, instant regret. The door is not the end. The door is the beginning of everything that follows, and the record is now telling you it began before that morning. You are about to enter the peak danger phase of the story. The case is identified. The suspects are in focus. But one more decision point is coming, because the next steps are not only about arrest. They are about keeping the community safe while the method is still fresh. You move into the next section with one clear question in your mind. If the disguise worked once, what stops it from working again? You are now in the part of the file where time feels tight, even days later. The suspects are not a rumor anymore. The method is clear: a police disguise at a private door. If it worked once, it can work again, and that risk sits on every street in the district. Investigators do two things at the same time. They build a case that can survive court, and they try to stop a repeat. That balance is hard. If you move too fast, you lose evidence. If you move too slow, you gamble with another door. A public warning goes out. The language is careful, but the message is plain. Do not open the door just because someone looks official. Verify. Call the non-emergency line. Ask for confirmation through dispatch. It is not paranoia. It is procedure. This is the counterintuitive detail of Section 6. The safest move is not bravery. The safest move is delay. A few seconds of verification can break the entire method. You can feel the effect immediately. People talk through doors. Building managers watch lobbies more closely. Neighbors compare camera angles. The city becomes a little more alert and a little more tired. Inside the investigation, a different pressure grows. A disguise case lives and dies on the quiet pieces. Video clips, clothing purchases, phone data, vehicle movement. Not one dramatic confession. The file becomes a stack of small truths that all point one direction. You get a timeline marker from the record. In the days after the incident, police arrest 2 men. From this point forward, the danger shifts. The fear of a repeat drops. The risk becomes legal. Every step must be clean, documented, and defensible. Now the attempted solution begins. You track the suspects without turning it into a show. You coordinate warrants and interviews. You collect and preserve everything that ties the disguise to the entry, and the entry to the outcome. You treat clothing, gloves, and any marked items as evidence, not as props. You document who handled what and when. You do it because later, someone will argue that the disguise is assumption, not fact. A mini hook lands when you realize how much the disguise complicates motive. This does not look like a random act. This looks like a targeted return. The earlier break-in, noted later in sentencing, supports that sense of planning. You are not chasing chaos. You are chasing intent. You take a breathing beat and summarize what is now true. A senior woman is found dead inside her home. The door is not forced. Video shows 2 men approach wearing police-marked jackets. A neighbor camera is moved. Police arrest 2 suspects within days. Those points are enough to form a case outline, but not enough to finish it. The next complication is the simplest one. In court, defense does not have to prove innocence. Defense only has to create doubt. So you prepare for doubt. You link the door to the disguise to the suspects, and the suspects to the interior actions. You do it with records, not emotion. The sensory world of this phase is different. It is not rain on a porch anymore. It is fluorescent light in an interview room. It is paper sliding across a table. It is the soft hum of a computer, pulling video frame by frame. It is a phone ringing in a detective office at night. Another pattern interrupt comes with the plea. The case does not end with a dramatic trial moment. It closes through admissions in court. Reporting later confirms 1 man pleads guilty to manslaughter and receives a 12-year sentence, and the second man receives a 7-year sentence. That is the official closure the title promises. A closed file, a confirmed outcome. Now you place the social call to action, because this method spreads through fear and silence. If you know someone who lives alone, share this case file with them, not for panic. For one simple habit, verify before you open. The peak danger of Section 6 is not physical action on screen. The peak danger is what the disguise teaches the public. It teaches that trust can be copied. It teaches that the calm voice at the door is not always safety. The attempted solution is the only one that scales. Verification, communication, a pause before compliance. You also see the human cost in the official language. A sentence length is measured in years, but the emotional cost is measured in routines that never feel normal again. A doorbell becomes a trigger. A knock becomes a question you cannot ignore. The file closes, but the sound stays. You end this section with the last forward pull. The case is now closed on paper, but the record still holds one uncomfortable lesson. The door did not fail because it broke. The door failed because it was used exactly as designed. In the next section, you step into the official aftermath, what the court confirms, what the public learns, and what changes in the wake of one trusted knock. You reach the part of the file where the chaos stops moving and everything becomes language, reports, exhibits, sentencing reasons. The street outside the house returns to normal traffic, but the case does not end in the neighborhood. It ends in court. The official closure is not dramatic. It is procedural. One man admits guilt to manslaughter and receives a 12-year sentence. The second man receives a 7-year sentence for his role. The court confirms what the investigation has been building from the start. The entry is gained by police disguise. The outcome is fatal. The case is closed by conviction and sentence. You sit with the counterintuitive detail again. There is still no forced door, no splintered frame that can be held up like proof. The proof is the timeline. The proof is the method. The proof is how the disguise turns a normal safety reflex into an opening. In the sentencing record, the judge describes the conduct in plain terms. The offenders present themselves as police. They use that presentation to gain access. The fact that the same home had been broken into days earlier becomes part of the context because it helps explain why a police presence at the door might feel believable in that moment. It is not about judging a decision. It is about understanding the pressure that shapes it. The courtroom atmosphere has its own sensory weight. Dry air, soft footsteps on polished floors, paper turning, a clerk calling the next item. People sit still in rows, waiting for words that cannot repair anything, but can at least confirm what happened and what the state will do about it. This is where you see the human impact without needing detail. You hear about the victim as a person, not a headline. A neighbor, a family member, a routine life that ends because someone chooses to exploit trust. The court language stays restrained, and that restraint makes it heavier. You feel how much is being held back out of respect and necessity. You also see the investigation validated line by line. Video evidence supports the approach. The disguise explains the lack of forced entry. The moved camera supports a controlled attempt to manage sightlines. The rapid shift from welfare check to secured scene is shown as a reasonable response to what officers find. The case does not close on a single clue. It closes on a chain that holds under scrutiny. There is a moment in every closed case where the public wants a simple takeaway. Lock your door, buy a better lock, add a camera. Those things can help, but the case keeps pointing to something less comfortable. The weak point is not always hardware. Sometimes the weak point is your belief that certain symbols mean safety. This is why the warning matters. Verify. Slow down. If someone claims to be police at your door, you do not have to debate through the crack. You do not have to argue. You use distance and procedure. You keep the door closed and confirm through official channels. The case shows that a few seconds of delay can break the entire plan. The emotional resolution is quieter. The sentences are handed down. The defendants are moved out of the room. The file is marked closed. Outside, rain may still fall on the same sidewalks, and people still walk dogs past the same park. But for those closest to the case, the sound of a doorbell is changed. That is the lasting consequence that does not fit neatly on a docket sheet. You take one more breathing beat and summarize what the record confirms. A police disguise is used to gain entry during a January 2021 Vancouver home invasion. a senior woman dies after the incident. 2 men are arrested. The case closes with guilty pleas and prison sentences. The entry method becomes the central lesson because it bypasses the defenses people rely on most. Now the story slows. The danger is over, but the meaning is still moving. In the next section, you step back from the file and pull out what this case teaches, what you should never assume at a door, and how communities hold on to safety after trust has been copied. You step back from the porch and the court file, and you let the full timeline settle in your mind. In late January 2021 in Vancouver, a senior woman is at home during the early hours. 2 men approach the door wearing police-marked jackets. They ring once and wait. The door opens. The street stays quiet. Hours later, a neighbor notices a camera has been moved and asks police for a welfare check. Officers arrive expecting silence and concern. They find a scene that changes the day into a homicide investigation. From there, the case becomes a record built from small parts that do not lie. Video of the approach, the moved camera angle, the lack of forced entry, the careful documentation of what is found and what is not found. The file also carries one detail that shifts the meaning of the door. The home had been broken into days earlier. That context helps explain why a police appearance at the door might feel believable, even comforting in that moment. It does not change responsibility. It clarifies the pressure. Records and reporting confirm that the case closes in court with guilty pleas and prison sentences. 1 man pleads guilty to manslaughter and receives a 12-year sentence. The second man receives a 7-year sentence. That is the official closure. 2 offenders are held accountable. The file is no longer open. The method is still worth studying because it targets trust. This is where you take the first takeaway, and it is about decision-making. In this case, the decision is not made in a vacuum. It is made at a doorway, in low light, with an earlier break-in still on your mind, and with a symbol of authority standing close to the frame. The lesson is that your brain will try to simplify under stress. It will look for a category that feels safe. When something looks official, the mind wants to cooperate. The safer move is to slow down and separate appearance from verification. A pause is not disrespect. A pause is control. The second takeaway is about safety, and it is practical. You keep the door closed, and you verify through official channels. You use distance and time as tools. You speak through the door. You ask for a name and a badge number, and you confirm it through a phone number you find yourself, not a number offered at the door. If you live in an apartment, you coordinate with building staff and neighbors, so no one feels forced to face a doorway alone. Cameras help, but the case shows that cameras also need protection and routine checks, because someone willing to plan will think about sightlines. The most important barrier is still the one you control. The door stays closed until the visit is confirmed. The third takeaway is about human compassion, because fear can harden people after a case like this. A method that copies trust can turn a neighborhood into a place where nobody opens up for anyone. The better response is measured and kind. You look out for neighbors without demanding details. You check on older residents with simple routines that do not expose them. You offer to help set up verification habits. You share the lesson without spreading panic. When a community responds with steady attention instead of suspicion, the method loses power. There is also a quieter lesson that lives under all three. The door does not fail because it is weak. It fails because it is doing its job. It is the border between your private world and the street. In normal life, that border is supported by trust. In this case, Trust is copied and used as an entry tool. That does not mean you stop trusting forever. It means you learn where trust belongs. Trust belongs after verification, not before. If you replay the opening moment, the sound that stays with you is not a crash. It is a single doorbell ring. The case shows how a calm tone can be part of a plan. It shows how a controlled posture can create compliance. It shows how silence afterward can delay help. And it shows how a file can still close with accountability, even when the first entry leaves no broken door behind. And you finish this case with respect for the victim and for the people who had to respond to a scene that should never have existed. You also carry forward one clean habit that can save a life. You keep the door closed and you verify. If you stayed to the end, comment confirmed. It tells me you made it through the full case file. And if you want the next closed case warning, subscribe and join me in the next file. Until then, keep your night quiet, keep your door closed, and keep your trust protected.